Hello creative friends, this is Joy coming to you with another art journal page. So on this journal page I decided that I wanted to do a picture of this albino tiger. So I'm trying to get a rough sketch of the shape of the tiger and the placement of like the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and just try to get the you know composition of this tiger down on this art journal page. I decided that I wanted to do an art journal, mixed media art journal page, but incorporate a painting of an animal into it. And this is the animal that I come up with and decided that I wanted to put on this particular art journal page. So I'm just roughly doing, like I said, the sketch just to kind of get the shapes, and I start rough sketching in some of the um, stripes because it looked to me like I needed to add some more space on that one right side of his face. But after sketching in some of the stripes, I decided, you know what, it's fine. I'm just going to go with it like it is. I could have extended that out a little bit more, but this is just a rough interpretation or sketch and painting of this particular albino tiger, so it doesn't need to be exact. So I like origami paper and using it for mixed media because it's nice and thin and it's got really pretty patterns. So I grabbed my origami paper, and I always liked the torn edges, so I kind of quickly took off the straight edge so it would be torn edges and then ripped that into pieces. And I did this with all the other pieces that I decided I wanted to put on this page. There was another piece that I picked that was like blue, but I decided that this was plenty enough what I was putting on here. So I just took some white gesso and watered it down and um, went over put some of that down on the page and then over the top of these pieces to get these pieces down on the page. So that's what I'm doing here. I overlapped the drawing of the tiger, and again was thinking, well, if some of it shows through that'd be kind of cool, but in the end it didn't really show through. And then I'm just rubbing off on some of these pages where I felt like it was covering up a little too much. I grabbed my watercolors and decided to do just a quick watercolor background on this journal page in different shades of blue and green. And that's what I'm doing here, is just throwing down some watercolor paints um, in different shades of blue and green. And I went over it a second time because, I wanted it darker. It kind of came out lighter than I was really wanting it to be. I wanted it much darker than what it was came out to be the first time around. So I did go over it a second time to darken up the color. And then I decided that I wanted to distress it a little bit more. And so I grabbed my alcohol and sprayed on there and then did these big drips on there to get the paint to move around a little bit and to be more distressed. So that's what I'm doing here. And then after all of that dried, I grabbed some acrylic paint. This is just some inexpensive craft acrylic paint and nothing real, fancy or expensive. Some black and white. I did put some blue on my palette here and was going to add some of the blue, but in the end I only actually added blue to his eyes. So I'm using these colors to paint this albino tiger in, and I'm have the picture standing up, in front of me as reference. And I don't do it like exactly like the picture. I just kind of do the painting kind of generally like the picture. But that's what I'm basically doing here. And while the paint is wet, I was able to come in with the white and then kind of mix and get some shadows and grays in there. And then you'll see me at different times where I'll actually mix up a gray, either a darker gray or a lighter gray, to get different variations in this tiger. And so, yeah, as I was painting it, I guess I kind of decided I wasn't really keen on some of the paper showing through either. Like on the left side of his face, it looks like just this big green blob, and I didn't care for that. And on the top of his head, it just looked like some kind of, I don't know, brown kind of something there, and I didn't particularly care for that. So I think that was part of why, in the end, most of that gets covered up anyway. And so again, I'm just going through trying to get in the shadows and the light parts and the dark parts, and just trying to get a general base on this particular tiger. So just trying to add some highlights to some of the fur on the side of his face over there, and then lighten that up a little bit because I felt like it was a little too dark. But then I get it too light and I go back and darken it. You'll see here in a minute. It's like I kind of went back and forth until I was satisfied with it. But, that's, what painting is all about anyway, isn't it? Just kind of experimenting and playing around and seeing, what works and what you like, and, you know, um, getting to where you're happy with, what you've done. So here at this point I decided to start kind of putting in some of these stripes on this tiger, and so on the one side it looked like the stripes were a little kind of more gray than black, and so I get this darker gray and start using it to put in some of the striping, and then after I got to a certain point decided that I wanted it to be darker. I didn't particularly care for the, gray. I wanted it more black. So I do go over a lot of this with just black paint to, make it darker. Because I decided that, yeah, I didn't care for like the gray. Um, I wanted it more black. But in the picture, it kind of looked like the stripes were kind of gray, more than a dark black. But that's okay. It's my painting, and I decided that, that's the way I want, it to be, then that's the way I'm going to do it. And I'm, you know, liked it much better just doing the straight black instead of the gray. And I did find that on that right side, it was, it probably would have been helpful if it was a little bit, if I had a little bit more room over there, but that's okay. I managed to, get it all, um, get it worked out and stuff where it was fine. I mean, I was happy with it in the end, the way that the tiger turned out. I was pretty happy with it. So here I'm trying to darken up the shadow a little bit more, but then I get it too dark, and so I'm trying to add some more white back into it. And I do the same on the other side because I realize that, those areas are darker than what I have it. And again, I'm just trying to get generally close, but not, exact to what the picture is showing. So I'm painting the nose, and I felt like that it needed a little bit more definition or whatever. So I do go back over the nose just a little bit with a little bit of white to kind of add a little bit more contrast to the nose. Yep, there. Just trying to give it a little bit more contrast. And, the picture I was using, it was like a full body tiger. And so it was hard to really see all of the, details. So some of this, I was kind of just going by, what I would think that, the details should be, since you couldn't really see, real close of the details of the tiger's, face, and nose and all of that. So some of this was kind of going on, kind of my own, what I would think it would be or should be. So I'm continuing to work on the face, and excuse my clock. It always seems to go off when I'm recording, so I apologize for that. Always at the most inopportune time. And I'm putting in, I guess they're like, I don't know what they call them, pores or something like that, where the tiger's whiskers are. And the one thing that I, do after I was done with this whole page, the one thing that I would have liked to have done differently is had the background around the tiger darker so that he would stand out more than he stands out right now. That's the only kind of adjustment I think I would have liked to have made to this tiger, is just have him stand out more from the page, because at this point, I mean, you can kind of see that he kind of just blends right into the page almost, and it's hard to really see where the tiger, begins and, or ends and the page begins, or vice versa. So here I'm just using a very dry brush with some black on it, and again just going into some areas that I felt still needed to be darkened, and doing some adjusting to some of the stripes there on his head where I felt like that they needed to be need a little bit more going on there, because it seemed like that stripe coming down the center of his forehead looked a little off. So I was trying to kind of make it look like it's more centered. It just looked funky to me. And continuing just with a very dry brush and some black paint, just trying to shadow around the face of the tiger where I thought it needed more shadow. Added some white to the eyes to give a little highlight. And I had already added blue there a little bit ago to the eyes. Going back over the fur around his face, trying to get a little bit more contrast in that than what there was, and the ears, and the fur on the other side of his face. Just trying to get more contrast in that. So I finally get to a point, I think this is where I'm like, this looks pretty good. So I decided to water down the white to try to put some whiskers, and with a little fine liner brush. And for some reason I always struggle with the whiskers. I don't know what it is. It never flows no matter how much water I put. It just doesn't quite do it for me. I always have difficulty with that. So that's pretty much, the tiger. I decided, yeah, that's good enough. And I found a couple of titles in my stash that I thought would go with this page. And I'm just kind of moving them around to figure out how I want them to appear on the page. And you can see it says each of us is stronger than we realize. And then the other quote says, with determination you can overcome any obstacle. So I thought, well, those are kind of cool. And then I went through my stash and found some other elements, a couple of some flowers, and what is that? It's like a border that I cut into pieces, and the flowers was kind of like a border, so that I thought kind of looked good on this page. And then I have some other flower stickers that match those flowers on the border. And so I decided this would add, a nice design to the page. And here I'm using glue dots to put down these elements. That seems to work really good when you're wanting to put down elements, especially the somewhat heavy ones like those are. And then I get out my Extreme, it's called Extreme Glue Stick. I really love this stuff because, boy, it is extreme. It's like whatever you glue down, it's permanent. So that makes me happy. So I'm using it to put glue on the back of the title and glue those down. I could have used, Mod Podge, which I don't really care for because that gets a little sticky where your pages want to stick together, or matte medium works good, but with the paint being watercolor, if I tried to do matte medium on the back and then over the top, it would, reactivate the watercolor paint, so I didn't want to do that. So that seemed to, the glue stick seemed to be the best option. So I decided that with these flowers I want to put on this page, I wanted some leaves. So I grabbed some textbook pages and cut leaf shapes, and then took a marker and put the veins and then trimmed, put it, edged the whole thing to put on this page. And then there's the flower that kind of matches the border, and then I just use my extreme glue stick again to stick down those leaves with the little flower sticker. And then I felt like that the flower sticker kind of blended into the background too much, so I went back over that with the brown marker to help that stand out more. So I did that on a couple of areas on this page. Well, you'll see that here in just a minute because I kind of jump ahead. Yeah, and here I go around the flowers so that they stand out more against the background. And then I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Here we go. Then I went around the title in with the black marker. I first tried brown, and I'm like, it needs to be black. So I decided to draw around all the titles in black. And then after getting to this point, thinking, well, this looks pretty good, but then I felt like it just needed something else, one more element on the other page, which I decided to put a flower, you'll see that here in a minute, on the right side page above the U. It just seemed like it needed something in that area. And I really like outlining the title because it really helps it stand out much better. So I put that down and then drew around it, but I used my Xyron for these flowers to get them to be sticky, but then that one didn't, I guess, didn't seem like it was sticking as well, so I used my glue stick to give it a little bit more stick. And then I grabbed my StazOn and edged the whole page. So that's pretty much the art journal page for today. If you like this video, you can hit the like button, or you can hit the subscribe button to see more. Or you can leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. I appreciate you stopping by and watching my video. And we'll talk to you guys again later. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.